Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt, once again reporting for the Sin Bin, and I bring to you the top 10 Montreal Canadiens prospects. So why am I doing this video? It's kind of out of the blue, right? Well, you guys may have heard that the Canadiens put out an offer sheet for center Sebastian Aho. Now, unfortunately for the Canadiens, the Carolina Hurricanes matched it. I say unfortunately because I truly think that Sebastian Aho may be a top 20 player in this league, and he can help any team, let alone the Montreal Canadiens. So I got really depressed. I was crying. I grew a depression beard. But then I thought to myself, let's not focus on the negative. The Canadiens still have a lot to look forward to, and this is why I decided to do this video. They have one of the deepest prospect pools in all of the NHL, if not the deepest. So I thought that I would look at the positive, I would look at the players that we do have, and I would rank them 10 to 1, 1 being the best prospect. Now, you guys may have different opinions. This is just my rankings, my opinions. In that case, you might put in the comments, who do you think are the top 10 prospects for the Montreal Canadiens? One last thing before I get going here. I don't usually do scripted videos, but especially for this video, I have a few notes written down on my phone. If you see me looking down at my phone, I'm just listing off some points here because I really wanted to make sure that I hit as much info as possible and that you guys get the most info for each player that I'm going to name. So, without further ado, let's start with number 10. And with number 10, I select Kale Flurry. Now, Kale Flurry is a 20-year-old defenseman born in Calgary, Alberta. He was drafted by the Canadiens 87th overall in the third round in the 2017 NHL draft. At 6'1", 201 pounds, he is definitely of NHL size, and we can see him make the jump as soon as this upcoming season. He played last season with the Laval Rocket, and he played very well. He got 23 points in 60 games, so don't expect him to be any kind of offensive dynamo here. But that being said, he's a very mobile defenseman, and that can allow him to improve his offense as he grows. He's responsible, makes the right choices, and uses his body in very effective ways. Now, when I say he uses his bodies in effective ways, he won't throw himself out of a play in order to deliver a big hip check or a big hit or something like that. He's very responsible, a very safe defenseman, stay at home. And one thing I forgot to mention, for all of these players, I give them an NHL comparable. And for this player, Kale Flurry, the NHL comparable is Brandon Montour. Now, Montour played with the Anaheim Ducks, got later traded to the Buffalo Sabres, and they're kind of similar players. Very mobile, not going to stun you with points. I think Montour got something like 30 points this past season, and that's sort of what I see for Kale Flurry. He played with Laval this past season, and from what I hear from the Laval coach, because I haven't really followed much of their games, but Joel Bouchard seemed very pleased with him, and I heard rumblings of him making the big squad last season. So I think that for the Montreal Canadiens, where he projects, he's probably not going to be, well, he's definitely not going to be a top 2. He probably won't be a top 4, but I can see him round out that top 6, and with Jordy Ben gone, there's now an opening here on defense, and we might see Cale Makar, good lord, we might see Kale Flurry make that jump with the big squad. That would be something if the Canadiens had Cale Makar. But without further ado, let's jump to our number 9 best prospect with the Montreal Canadiens. And number 9, I'm going Caden Primo. So, who is Caden Primo? Caden Primo is a 6'3", 200-pound goalie drafted 199th in the 7th round of the 2017 draft. Given that he is drafted in the 7th round, it's already looking like he's going to be a huge steal by Trevor Timmins. Seriously, Mr. Timmins, you've really turned your shit around this past years, and Caden Primo is no exception here. He played with the Northeastern University. His draft year, he got a save percentage of .931. Seriously, guys, a save percentage of .931. I know this is college hockey, but still, .931? You guys probably think that this is impossible to beat. You're probably thinking that his second year there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off, right? Wrong. Caden Primo, his second year, got a save percentage of .933. So this guy has been all world in college hockey. So you might be thinking, why am I only ranking him number 9? He seems like, you see, he got the Mike Richter Award, for finalist for it. Why is he ranked so low? The reason why he's ranked so low is because, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to project goalies, right? We saw it a few years ago with Zach Fucale, an example I constantly go to. I remember when he got drafted in the second round of the 2013 draft. Craig Button was going nuts. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He was saying, this is the best goalie, the best 16-year-old goalie I've ever seen. And Zach Fucale hasn't really played a game in the NHL. At least not with the Canadiens, I don't think so. He's kind of been a fail. I think he went to the ECHL at some point. So the reason why I have a number 9 is because it's really hard to project the goalie. He has great stats, he has great size, and I'm excited for that. But I don't know how that's going to translate to the NHL. So for that reason, I'm beating a dead horse. Caden Primo comes in at number 9. Without further ado, let's get to our number 8 player. And my number 8 player, I'm going with Yanni Ikonen. So who is Yanni Ikonen? Ikonen is a 20-year-old Finnish centerman. While he is 6 foot, which is a decent NHL size, he only weighs about 178 pounds. So I would definitely like to see him put on a little bit more weight, especially when you're playing at center, which is a position that requires a lot of muscle mass. So when Ikonen was first drafted, 58th overall in the second round of the 2017 draft, a lot of people were excited. In fact, I remember when people were ranking their prospects after that draft, people were putting Ikonen ahead of Ryan Poehling. Ryan Poehling was drafted in the first round of that very same draft. So the fact that they were ranking Ikonen ahead of Poehling, that's a testament of his talent here. Now, why would they do that? Why would they rank him above Poehling? Now, their rationale was that Ikonen, he might not be as safe as a player. He's more high risk reward, but his potential is higher than Ryan Poehling's. Now that a few years have gone by from that 2017 draft, a lot of those experts would probably like to revise that ranking, but with that, I'm just saying that he was ranked very high when he was first drafted. A lot of people were excited. Now, let's see, where am I? Now, those expectations were tempered because his draft plus 1 year was pretty bad. He put up very low numbers with Kalpa. He also suffered a knee injury in the offseason. It prevented him from playing hockey for 8 months, and that kind of sucks because it wasn't even a hockey play. It was during offseason training. So he was out for 8 months. The reason why he is still ranked high on my list is because the bounce back he made after that injury. I mean, this guy, no one was talking about him. Still, a lot of you aren't talking about Yanni Ikonen. He's probably forgotten in a lot of your minds. But when he came back from that injury, he got 10 points in 13 games. And in the Finnish league, that's nothing to spit at. He's a very, very solid player. He's fluid skating. He has great work ethic. And it seemed that after his injury, against all odds, his confidence seemed to be higher than ever. And he just played great hockey there. He looked like a completely different player. And where a lot of people judged his character, I think that after this past season, his character isn't really the issue. I think that in the case of Yanni Ikonen, it's just a question about maintaining this hard work. And the end of the season it's a really, really small sample size. I would like to see him replicate that, but over the course of a full season. Also, what's essential for Yanni Ikonen, it's to stay healthy. You can't improve if you're not playing hockey, and for him, he just has to stay healthy and continue putting up points with Kalpa. But for me, I'm really excited for Ikonen, and I can't wait to see him play with the Canadiens. I don't know if he'll ever be a top-line center or maybe a top 2, but if you can play a solid top 3 role with the Canadiens, that's very much needed too. So next off, our number 7th prospect, he has a similar name to Yanni Ikonen. It's Jesse Ylonen. So who is Jesse Ylonen? As I said, he's a Similar name, so he's probably a Finnish player, right? Now, I say Finnish player, but he was actually born in Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah, his dad played hockey, and I don't know, he's probably playing with Arizona at the time, and his wife conceived in Scottsdale, but he still played with Finland at the World Championship. He probably would identify himself as a Finnish player. He was drafted in the famous 2018 draft. You guys are going to hear that a lot, 2018. That was a pretty good draft for Trevor Timmins, in my opinion. And he was drafted 35 overall. Now 35, it's technically it's a second rounder. If you squint really hard, that's almost a first round pick. But I don't want to get your guys' hopes up. But another player that's from Finland and drafted 35th overall. I'll give you guys time to guess. Sebastian Aho. Sebastian Aho is a 35 overall pick. So there's definitely some talent to be seen at the 35th spot. I am not saying that he's going to be as good as Sebastian Aho, but my point is there is still a lot of talent to be seen. A lot of people were saying he might have went in the first round. But let's talk a little bit about his game. So as far as Ikonen goes, the thing that stands out about him is one word: speed, speed, and more speed. I guess that was 3 words, but it's the same word, speed. He's extremely quick. He's lightning quick. And whilst he's not the biggest guy around, he's really, really skinny. In fact, he's only 165 pounds. He is 6 foot, but 165 pounds. That's not really a concern for me. Why? Because he plays wing, and at the speed at which this guy travels, it's hard for people to hit him, because in order to deliver a hit, you first have to catch up to the player. And the thing about Ikonen, it's really hard to catch up with him. So when I think about Ikonen, I think about a player like Paul Byron, who's in this current lineup. He does have a better shot than Byron, though. Now, his draft plus 1 year was very up and down, as Habs' eye is on the prize right. In his second game of the season, Ikonen scored twice, and expectations rose exponentially with each goal. However, it took 9 more games to record his 3rd goal and 3rd point. For a player whose strength was supposed to be his offense, and who had played in a good league the season before, something was lacking. Now, he did pick up his offense around that time that the World Juniors came out. One thing that people criticized Ikonen when he got drafted was for his defensive game. That is something that he worked on a lot, and he has improved a lot. So there you have it, eyes on the prize, saying maybe his season was up and down when it comes to points, and one thing he really needed to work with is his defensive game. He's viewed as kind of an offensive player. So again, think of Paul Byron, and his defense may be leaving something to lack. But that being said, he did improve it a lot over this past year, and as the year went along with the Pelicans, his defensive game grew, and that's what you want to see from these prospects. You want to see him grow. He has great hockey IQ too, but things that I would want to see him improve: he fixed the defensive part. Now I think it's time for the points total to go up. I want to see him record more points. He had the same amount of points as last year, but he played much more games than last year. So technically his points per game went down. So I would like to see him put that up. He kind of stalled this year. And also, this might be a product of his size, but he doesn't really go to the dirty areas. I would like to see him get really dirty and kind of like Brendan Gallagher does, go to the dirty areas. Now, Brendan Gallagher is built like a linebacker. If this guy wants to do what Brendan Gallagher does as a winger for the Montreal Canadiens, he has to put on some size. Now, I just realized I've been forgetting to give comparable players. So for Ikonen, my comparable is Michael Grabner. And for Yanni Ikonen, my comparable player is Paul Stastny. So it's kind of that player who doesn't have really a weakness, but doesn't have anything he's really good at. So, and for Caden Primo, it's too hard to compare goalies. So I'm just going to say Carey Price, but that one's hard. So there you go. Michael Grabner, Paul Stastny, Carey Price. So next up, our number 6 player. Here we go. Our number 6 player is Jayden Struble. So, who is Jayden Struble? Jayden Struble is a 17-year-old defenseman drafted in the second round, 48th overall of this most recent 2019 NHL draft. Now, while he's only 17, he's got the body of a man, clocking in at 6 foot, 195 pounds, and those numbers are just going to keep going up as he ages. Now, before I get into his hockey play, let me just talk about Jayden as an athlete. So Jayden did really well at this year's NHL Combine, and from what I hear, a lot of teams had their eye on him and wanted to draft him. So it's a good thing that Trevor Timmins got his hands on him in the 48th spot. So the American left-handed blue liner played with the St. Sebastian High School. Jayden put up 40 points in 28 games this year after scoring at a point-per-game rate for the same team last season. He has great puck-moving skills and uses his edges intelligently and uses his big frame for evil. Now, I hear a lot of, I listen to TSN 690 a lot, and they often interview Pierre McGuire. Pierre McGuire's son, Ryan McGuire, played with Jayden because in the high school hockey program. And from what I hear from Pierre McGuire, this player is nasty. I quote from McGuire, "He is a nasty piece of business." And I mean that in a complimentary way. So Jayden Struble is not going to be a nice person, to say the least. And the Canadiens need that. They have a history of being midgets, the Canadiens. They're not really strong. They're small. And you kind of need a player to give you some of that nastiness. And the fact that he's a left-handed defenseman, which is something the Canadiens really lack at that position, the fact that he's a left-handed defenseman, that's just a bonus, guys. I mean, Jayden Struble, from what I hear, great skating, great edges. And again, you might be asking, why is he only ranked number 6th? Why is he not ranked higher? The reason why he's still number 6th is because he's playing high school hockey. The competition isn't the same. Now, from what I understand, this year he's going to make a jump to college hockey. I think he's going to play with Northeast. That's going to be more of a good assessment of his talent because he's playing with better competition. It's hard to say in high school where these players are going to project, but from what I've seen from him from the development camp, he seems like a really promising player. And yeah, I totally agree with McGuire. He's going to be a physical presence on that blue line, and something that the Canadiens have been lacking for the longest time. And yeah, by the way, look at this kid. Does this guy look like a 17-year-old? This guy is 17. He looks like he's 35. What are they feeding this guy at St. Sebastian's? Because I want some of it. This guy looks mean. He looks like he rips phone books in his spare time. But that being said, enough about Jayden Struble. Let's go on to our number 5 Canadian prospects. And for number 5, I select Josh Brooke. Now, Brooke is a smooth skating defenseman out of Roblin, Manitoba. He was drafted 56th overall of the 2017 NHL draft. He's a 6'1" right-handed shot defenseman. Now, he actually played 5 seasons in the WHL with the Moose Jaw Warriors, and each season was better than the next. So I'm really happy to see that he's kind of progressed. We see a lot of players sometimes taking a step back. I think Jake Virtanen was one of them, where as his junior career went along, it seemed like he stopped progressing. But for Josh Brooke, his points have just been going up, and each season was better than the next. Now, out of all of the defensemen in the Montreal system, I think that Brooke has the highest offensive upside. He is by far the player that impressed me the most at the Montreal Canadiens development camp. He's a great skater, defends superbly, and has great zone exits with nice breakout passes. I think that he still needs another season with the Laval Rocket to just get used to playing with men, but from what I see, he's a very good prospect, and I think that his single best asset is his hockey IQ. I give his player comparable to be Nick Leddy. And again, I forgot it for Struble, but his comparable is McAvoy. But more physical than McAvoy. But back to Josh Brooke here. As I said in that little information packet, he is by far, you could see it on my channel, he's the player that impressed me the most at the Canadiens development camp. He just had smooth skating, as you see in this clip. He had great hockey IQ, and I always bring up the comparable about Nathan Beaulieu. Beaulieu, when he played junior with the St. John Sea Dogs, he was a tremendous skater, and his offense was really good. But the problem with Nathan Beaulieu was up here. He didn't have the hockey IQ to really back up that skating. Now, this is something that's totally different with Josh Brooke. Josh Brooke sees the ice very nicely. He knows where his teammates are. He won't put them in a bad position. And if he himself is in a bad position, he'll use his skating to get out of it. He's a tremendous skater. And in this day and age, in this NHL, that's really important to have. We see defensemen getting smaller and smaller, but faster and faster. We think about Quinn Hughes. We think about Jesper Boqvist. We think about a player from Montreal that might be reappearing in this list. So I think that the future is very nice for Josh Brooke. And in my opinion, he's going to make the NHL. I see him slotting into that top 4. I don't think there's any way he's below a top 4 player. This is how high I am on Josh Brooke. I'm probably his number 1 fan out there. And I'm just totally excited to see him with the Montreal Canadiens. But as I said, another year with Laval would benefit him. Even if it's not a full year, if they call him up by December, just so he can get kind of that seasoning. He played, I think, 7 games with the Laval Rocket last year, and he got 1 assist. So he needs to get a little bit more accustomed to playing with men. But from what I see with Josh Brooke, he's going to be a really nice prospect to follow here. Next up, number 4, and I alluded to him. We got Sasha Alexander Romanov. So Romanov was drafted 38th overall in the 2018 NHL draft. He's not an overly large player at 5'11", 185 pounds. But I remember when Romanov first got drafted, it was a huge shock. Many people had him going in the 3rd round, but Montreal took him in the 2nd round. And from what I hear, again, a lot of people had their eyes on him. A lot of teams wanted him. So, again, similarly to the other player we talked about, I forget who the fuck was it? Similarly to Primo. I think that selecting Romanov is a good decision by Trevor Timmins. Now, where do I see him slotting into the Canadiens lineup? Well, first of all, I definitely think that he's a steal. That being said, he won't be slotting in anytime soon because he has a contract with the KHL. For at least this year, he's going to play with the KHL. I don't even think he's coming to camp. Now, that's actually unfortunate because I'm really excited to see him play. Now, like I said, he plays in the KHL. He played with CSKA Moscow. And he's not going to blow you away with the points he notched with CSKA. He only got 4 points in 43 games. Does that bother me really much? No, it doesn't really bother me. Why? Because we saw in the World Juniors, when he played with people his own size, with people his own age, it wasn't even a contest. He was just on another level. He actually won Defenseman of the Tournament, which is really something. And it's a tournament that Josh Brooke played in too. So that factored in when I had to rank Romanov. He has great hockey IQ. That's what really stands out about him. He has adapted well to the KHL, and he knows when to pinch, when to deliver a hit, etc. Habs Eyes on the Prize says, he will always know where the puck is, where the open ice is, and where his teammates are. It helps him make the right decision almost all the time. This will only help Romanov's development and have him gain even more experience at an early stage of his career. Another impresses is a lot of his physical game in a men's league. Romanov has been able to stand up, deliver big hits, and force turnovers. The fact is that players grew aware of his physical natures and approached him in a different way towards the end of the season than at the start. Opponents were more careful, looked up, and in some instances created more space. He's also a very smooth skating defenseman, which is important nowadays in today's NHL. However, things to improve with him, as I said, his points total weren't overly good. So things to improve is his offensive awareness. Comparable player for me is Matt Dumba. So there you have it. Romanov comes in at number 4. Why did I rank him above Josh Brooke? So like before I stated, he won the defenseman of the tournament, and it's a tournament that Josh Brooke played in, so he outplayed him. Another reason why is because Romanov is a left-handed defenseman, whereas Josh Brooke shoots right. And right now in the Canadian system, left-handed defensemen are at a premium here. We don't have many. So it's for sure Romanov, for me at least, is more valuable than Josh Brooke. And also, why did I rank him above Struble? Well, the reason why is because, as I said, he played with St. Sebastian's, Struble did, and that's a high school league. Romanov is currently playing with men. It's arguably the second best league behind the NHL, and that means that his transition to the NHL will be that much more smooth. I am really excited about this player, guys. When I first made this list, when I first compiled it, he was actually my number 1. Romanov was my number 1 prospect with the Montreal Canadiens. I think that he has the most upside out of everyone, and that includes Cole Caulfield, that includes Nick Suzuki. I see Romanov as potentially, being a number 2, maybe even a number 1. But then again, it wouldn't surprise me if he's number 3 or 4. He's definitely a high-risk, high-reward player, and I am nothing but excited to see how he's going to do with the Montreal Canadiens. When he first got drafted, as I'm losing my voice, Trevor Timmins compared him to Alexei Yemlin, which is a really interesting comparison. While I don't think he's as big, and while I think he has better defense than Alexei Yemlin, the comparison actually stands because they both have really a physical edge to them. Romanov can definitely deliver big hits, and as they said in the little packet I just read from Eyes on the Prize, defensemen, they thought twice before going off of his side. So I can't wait to see him. I just salivate when I think of a line of Romanov and Brooke. That's something, like, our defense is set for a while. This is nothing but encouraging. So that's what I have to say about Romanov. What do you guys think? Let me know. But for now, we're getting into the top 3 here. And I already hear the comments. My number 3 is someone that a lot of people ranked number 1. I consulted a lot of lists before I made mine, and almost all of them had this player number 1. And the player I'm talking about is Nick Suzuki. So, Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki is a 19-year-old center drafted 13th overall in the 2017 draft. So, we all know, this is the only player on my list that isn't drafted by the Canadiens. He was drafted by the Golden Knights. He was shipped to Montreal in exchange for Pacioretty. And we also got Tatar to sweeten the deal. So, just that trade alone, it looks really promising for the Canadiens. I wouldn't say that they won the trade by any means, because I think Pacioretty is somewhat of a good player. I have a lot of thoughts on Pacioretty, but now's not the time. But it's definitely a good return for Montreal, especially when you see a player like Erik Karlsson, when he got traded from Ottawa. What they got in return, Josh Norris, I think Nick Suzuki is leaps and bounds better than him. So, just in summary, really happy for the return of Match Pacioretty. So, I think that most people agree that he's an adequate return. He spent the season in the OHL between the Owen Sound attack and the Guelph Storm, managing to cross the 100-point mark once. This past year, he almost single-handedly carried the Guelph Storm to an OHL title, notching 42 points in 24 games. Nick has great vision. He sees the ice like a seasoned pro, and he's only at 19. While a lot of people see him as a pass-first guy, I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I do think that his shot is lethal and precise. He also has one of the best hands, if not the best hands, out of all of the Canadiens prospect. One of Nick's biggest downsides, however, and this is one of the reasons he's not number one on my list, it's his skating. In a league that emphasizes skating so much, he really has a lot of room for improvement. And I know the player is sick of hearing it. He's been criticized that his whole career. But it's just a question about compensating. If you're not that great a skater, try to compensate in other areas of the play. And I hope he does that at the NHL level. When I say compensate, maybe, like Markov, for example. He was never a really good skater. But his IQ, his vision compensated for that. So that's what I mean by compensate. He doesn't have the fluidity and the smoothness that you would want to see. I mean, he's by no means horrible. He's just, in my opinion, he's average, maybe slightly below average. He's no Douglas Murray here, but still, there's a lot of room for improvement. A comparable player for me would be Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux isn't the best skater, but again, he compensates for it with his hands, with his intelligence on the ice. So, for me, Nick Suzuki is a really enigmatic prospect. We see what he did in juniors. We see what he's capable of. 42 points in the playoff, guys. This is great. And as you see here, his defense isn't bad, which is another reason why I would like to see him center. I don't think he'll be in the right place to play center, because the Canadiens are front-loaded on center for a lot of years to come. They have Kotkaniemi, they have Danault, they have Ryan Poehling. That's already a top three, and I didn't even mention Max Domi here. So, do you want Nick Suzuki on your fourth line center, or do you want him second line right winger? I would opt for the latter. When it comes to Suzuki, he has all of the talent in the world. The stick handling, the passing, the vision, he has it. He has all of the keys, except for maybe skating. He has all of the keys to be a good NHL player. My problem with him is the hustle. When I look at him play, I don't want to use the word that he's not hardworking, because I do think he's a hardworking player, but sometimes it looks like he doesn't have that drive, that hustle that maybe a Brendan Gallagher has. And when I saw him at training camp last year, that's something that stood out. When I saw him at the World Juniors, that's something that stood out. Of course, he gets a lot of points in the OHL, but he's an overager in the OHL. At this point, we expect him to get a lot of points. I don't know how that's going to translate to the NHL, because talent brings you to the floor, but hard work brings you to the ceiling. So, in terms of Nick Suzuki, I know this sounds a little bit negative. I'm still excited for this guy. He has a lot of talent, but if you really want to make it in this league, I want to see you busting your ass out there every single day. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does, and it just comes off differently. Let me know in the comments. But that's the reason Nick Suzuki, for me, is ranked number 3. In terms of brute talent, I think he's actually number 1. But in terms of where he projects, I put him number 3. So we're approaching the end here. We're at number 2. And for my number 2 player, I am going Ryan Poehling. So next up is Poehling. Ryan Poehling is probably the most NHL-ready player on this list. He was drafted 25th overall in the 2017 draft. He is a 20-year-old center. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's well-seasoned in college hockey. He played 3 years with the St. Cloud State University and put up some decent numbers. He's a fluid skater, works hard, has great hands, can definitely finish. Well, he did get 3 goals in his debut. I think that Poehling's calling card is definitely going to be his passing. He's only got 8 goals in his past year with St. Cloud, so I'm not sure how that's going to translate to the NHL. But that being said, he was awarded the player of the tournament at the 2018 World Juniors. I remember when the U.S. lost in that later part of the tournament, Poehling was crying. So the fact alone that he was crying, you see the kid is a winner. He wants to win. He takes it hard when his team loses. So it's just a question of translating it to the NHL level. He's played on average 36 games a year. For the past 3 years, he's played about 36 games. So the jump to 82 games It's going to be hard for Poehling. It's going to take a toll on his body. There's going to be some growing pains. But with the type of player Poehling is and the size he is, I think he has what it takes to survive that so-called jump to the NHL. He's also a low-maintenance type of player. He plays responsibly and takes care of the defensive side of the ice first. That's guaranteed to give Claude Julien a big old boner. A comparable player for me is Sean Couturier. Sean Couturier because, he's fast but not overly fast. He's a better skater than Nick Suzuki. He has great vision but takes care of the defensive part first. And that's what I see in Ryan Poehling. I remember when Ryan Poehling first got drafted by the Canadiens. He came to the camp, the development camp. He was 6 foot. He's 6'1", 175 pounds. Now this year, when he came around at the development camp, he was 6'3", 200 and something pounds. So he really took it seriously, his off-ice training, and he really wants to be a good player. And he added almost 30 pounds of muscle there. So I'm excited about that. We saw it in his first game. He wasn't pushed around. And I get it. It's the final game of the season. The Leafs weren't really trying hard. But he didn't get pushed around. He scored 3 goals. Got the shootout winner. Now let's temper expectations a little. I don't think he's going to score 240 goals or whatever it is in the NHL. But he's still going to be a really good player. I think at his peak, at his full potential, he might be a really, really elite second-line center. Oops. Sorry, I skipped a little package there. He might be an elite second-line center. And a lot of people say he's a third. I think he's too talented for 3. That being said, I think I'm more high on Poehling than most people are. But yeah, those were just my thoughts. I like Ryan Poehling. I think he's going to be a good player for years to come. Where he projects for me, maybe 55 to 70 points at his peak, at his really, really good years. In my opinion, I might be wrong. Again, let me know in the chat. And without further ado, I'm losing my voice, so I have water around here. Our number 1 player, you guessed it, Cole Caulfield. So, first overall, Cole Caulfield. We had the Flower, who played with the Montreal Canadiens. I'm, of course, referring to Guy Lafleur. And now we got the Cauliflower. Cole Cauliflower Caulfield. So, Cole Caulfield was drafted 15th overall in the 2019 draft. He was actually expected to go much higher, but teams kept passing on him, probably due to his size. He's only 5'7", 165 pounds. Does that scare me? Absolutely not. Let me just jump to the chase here. Cole Caulfield will score goals. I'm not sure if it's going to be 30. I'm not sure if it's going to be 40 or even 50. But one thing I can tell you is that he is going to score goals. He's got too much of that goal-scoring touch, that one-timer, his knack to find the back of the net. I think he's going to score goals. The reason why he is so high on my list is because the Montreal system is flooded with pass-first guys. Just think about it. How many players on the list I just named that I say more of a pass-first? Nick Suzuki, Ryan Poehling, Ikonen, players like that. We don't have too many pure goal scorers. Even up with the big club, Max Domi did well. He's a pass-first guy. Drouin did okay. He's a pass-first guy. I think Brendan Gallagher is probably the only pure goal scorer, him and Tatar maybe. And then Danault, pass-first guy. We need goal scorers. And he addresses a really big need on the team. I think if the Canadiens would have passed on him at the 2019 draft, I would have had an aneurysm here. Excuse me. I'm losing my voice. So that's it. All I want is goals. Watching Cole at the development camp, it shows me that not only does he have a knack to score goals, he's also a very damn hard-working player. Sort of like a Brendan Gallagher, but with a way better shot. Sort of like Brendan Gallagher if he had the shot of Phil Kessel. Now, I can't wait for 1 to 2 years from now when he'll be playing with the big squad, because he will be a big NHL player. He's going to be an elite first liner. And because of his shot and his attitude, he's, again, hardworking player. He has what it takes to be a dominant NHL player. Things that I would say he has to improve is his defensive play. He doesn't have to be Sasha Barkov out there or Mark Stone, but just, improve it a little bit. But that being said, if I'm the coach, if I'm Claude Julien, whoever the coach is going to be at that time, I'm just going to, free the reins on Cole Caulfield. I'm going to say, you kid, go ahead, go on offense, do what you do best, go score goals. And that's why he's ranked number 1. A comparable for him, we've heard the DeBrincat comparable because of his size, and I think that's a really good comparison, but it's a really cliched comparison. So I gave him a comparison that people aren't really, comparing him to, and that is Cam Atkinson. Atkinson, really small player, really feisty player, scored above 40 goals this year. I think that if he's anything like, DeBrincat or anything like Atkinson, this player is a steal for the Canadiens. And I can't wait to see him. So, guys, this was kind of a long video, probably longer than I expected. I know I'm a little all over the place sometimes. This is my first take. I only do first takes. And just let me know if you guys like the Canadiens and if you like hockey talk in general. Please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video. And without further ado, my name is Matt. Keep your stick on the ice.